Welcome back
We're back.
to another episode of But Wait, There's More. This is episode 9 here at Silver Wolf Comics and Games. We are filming once again with a live audience. This is a different live audience, so we'll see how this works out.
See how they throw dishes.
Yeah, very dangerous with dishes. So in the
Didn't
last
need to see that.
in the last episode, the party fought through the castle and they killed some stuff, and unfortunately it was late and I glossed over the fact that they fought a dragon and they killed it, which, you know, it's a big deal. And so yes, they fought this white dragon that I had mentioned earlier in the episode, and Turin, our ranger, actually got the killing blow, which is a big deal for him because his backstory is that chromatic dragons wiped out his tribe, and so he's dedicated his life to slaying dragons. So for him to get this kill was a big deal because now it meant he can take the dragon's tooth and add it to his charm, his dragon tooth necklace. It was his very first one, so it was a big deal for him. In addition to that, he decides to skin the dragon. So that's a survival check, and he critically succeeds. So he got a pristine dragon pelt. I mean, this is an adult dragon too, so it's massive. Just chopping this thing up, and it's perfect.
Yeah, the beauty of it was the Lord of the Castle, this cloud giant, is giving us this thankful speech during all of this. And honestly, all you could really envision, you know, we're sitting in a very tall, very powerful figure giving heartfelt regards due to removing this thing from his castle. But the whole time in the background, you could see Turin running back and forth with buckets of stuff. Yeah, I'm listening. Okay, fine. And run back and then go back. And you hear more chopping and sawing and then another bucket of stuff. Yeah, I'm listening. And, well, he ended up with it. He caped out that whole dragon from one end to the other. And we salted it, we cured it somewhere, somehow, and boxed it.
And when they got back to Waterdeep, he actually got it made into dragon scale armor. Now with this, with a perfect hide of that size, you could have probably made a couple of suits of white dragon scale, but the part of the problem was that you have to pay for it. You know, you got to pay to get this thing made. So in exchange for getting it made and getting it dyed purple, very special request. He likes the color purple. You'll see more on that later. He gives the rest of it to the armor smith as his fee. So now Turin, our dragon slayer, has dragon scale armor.
Very classy.
Yeah, it's very nice, and it suits him because he's all about hunting dragons, and this gives him the ability to sense if there is a dragon nearby. So that's handy, especially considering that, you know, they're the main antagonists of the story.
It beats the hell out of looking at the top of a tree line and going, oh crap, and there they are.
Yeah. So back to Waterdeep, the crew gets back, and now they finish the Hoard of the Dragon Queen, and they go into the next book, the Rise of Tiamat. It's similar in the setup to the Hoard of the Dragon Queen book, and so I highly recommend it to DMs out there. I mean, if you're going to do the first one, you might as well do the second one. The story leads into it, and it's very well made in my opinion, and it's well worth the $30 or so you plunk down to get the book. So that's my little brief review of it from the DM perspective. So far, I think the group's been enjoying it.
Well, we're not dead yet.
Well, not all of us.
Not all of us.
So now,
faux pas.
In Rise of Tiamat, after they've done all this stuff to stop what the cultists have been doing, the lords of Waterdeep and the leaders of various races and groups throughout the mortal realms in Faerun decide to get together and form a council to deal with this. And they deputize the party to handle this. So they get all the whole ominous. We give you permission to act in our stead and do this, do that. You have access to, this great stuff. But at the same time, they have to report to the council, and it's almost like, well, who do we help out? Who do we please? Because the different groups have different political interests and affiliations.
And the last thing you want to do is get wound up in Waterdeep intrigue, where you don't know who to trust, because everybody seems to be fairly forthcoming, but still, everybody has their own angle, and now here we are thrust into the middle of it all.
Well, and so they've got that going for them, but in the midst of all this, and after they've been deputized, it gives me a chance to work in Fergus's backstory. That's one thing as a DM that I want to do, is reward my players for creating interesting backstories. And so in this case, right after getting deputized, the way the story works is they have different episodes, and in between each episode you kind of have this downtime where you can send your guys off on a side quest. So what I do is I create a side quest for Fergus's character, maybe not so specifically for him, but for his wife Lithian. Fergus himself is pretty well adjusted, has normal life, as y'all remember from the episode where
he's about the most normal one of the bunch.
The least damaged.
Well, yeah, least damaged. He always wore a hat.
So, but Lithian, with her backstory, she was rescued from a raid on her house, but her sisters were captured. So in this instance, Lithian has gotten some intelligence on where her sisters will be in a certain time frame, which is a big shocker for her, because she's put out feelers, but it's been decades since she's heard anything about
she's been on the surface for better than 25 years. And it's just one of those problems. It's her entire house was absorbed by another noble house. And usually the end result is that they kill the adults, they rename the children, take over the property, and that's the end of it. But Lithian was spirited away stealthily by one very brave individual. And his plan was to smuggle her to the surface, because there are enclaves of drow that live on the surface. His plans were laid to naught when one of the people that he deals with discovers that she's a girl. He had disguised her as a boy. Once he found out she was a girl, things changed, and, well, she ends up running across a lot of really nasty types before she finally finds someone friendly enough to get her to the surface. Now, in all of this, she's really got a lot on her mind as far as keeping herself alive. But, it's like any siblings. I mean, people will always argue that, drow society, every sibling's going to be out for everybody else's neck. It's just the way they are. But in this particular case, they were relatively close. And it's just, over time, she's always wondered whatever became. She figures she's lost her mother. She's figured that. But now, lo and behold, she discovers her sisters are still alive and breathing, and evidently outside of the city and on the run. So she comes to us with this plea, basically, that, would you help me save my sisters? And it's like, now Fergus is in. Yeah, I mean, he's not going to say no to his own wife. It's just not going to happen. Because, I mean, they've talked about them over and over at length. And he knows that this isn't just some minor thing. I mean, this is epic. It has to be done. And he has to go to everyone else and see how they think. Because he can't just say, we're going to go and speak for everyone.
Right. Now, at this point, Fergus has a good rapport with the majority of the group, and the group likes Lithian herself. They've met her, and she's helped them out, and so the group is up for it. Yeah, she's a nice lady. And so they go on this quest to rescue the sisters from this drow elder cleric who has them under her control. And the reason why they can get to them and not have to go to Menzoberranzan, which is the Drow capital city and very, very scary, is because they've traveled to an underground city called Mordheim, which is run by Dwergar. Dwergar are basically the underground version of, or dwarf version of Drow, is what I should say.
They're not nice folks, let's put it that way.
The majority of them are evil. They're called dark or gray dwarves. They're not usually very friendly, and they live solely in the Underdark with a few rare exceptions. And so with that, the party packs up and gears up for traveling into the Underdark.
Yes. Well, first step is getting underground. Now, from Waterdeep, there are several different ways to get into the edges of the Underdark. And the easiest way, if I can think of the name of the bloody city, thank you, yes, there it is, Skullport.
Yep.
Skullport is almost directly under Waterdeep. It's about a mile down, I think. And there are ways to get to and from this one particular city. From there, we head out into true nastiness.
Now, the Underdark, for the uninitiated, is an entire world underneath the surface of Faerun. With cave systems, most people are familiar with cave systems, and it's fairly limited in certain regions. Well, in Faerun, the Underdark is this completely massive
network of tunnels that go for miles and miles.
Yeah, and it covers a large chunk of Faerun itself. So if you imagine everything on the surface, it's got almost a similar equivalent underneath.
You can cross the entire world and never see the sun.
Yeah. And so the Underdark is a generally very scary place because A, it's dark, B, it's underground, and C, there are all kinds of nasty, nasty critters.
Yeah. Critters. Plain and simple. Critters. So you go down there, you don't know what's going to try and eat your face first.
Yeah. Now, to get through there, the group turns to the ranger, Turin, and his first survival check to see if he can kind of guide them through the Underdark goes fairly well. He makes it, and then they come across, I believe it was a river?
Yes, low ceiling cavern. You come out of the cave on this side, there's the river, and another cave on the other side. Now, of course, us being down here, probably at not a high enough level to be down here in the first place, are paranoid. We're watching everything. Like, we check every rock twice to make sure it doesn't have eyes and teeth. And it's, how are we going to cross the river? It's like, should we wade across? Well, that was put down right away. Of course not. This is a relatively quick-moving body of water. So it's like, well, take a look one way, take a look another. And it ends up being, thank goodness, for a levitation spell, flight spell, one of the two. We get flown across, one at a time, two at a time, depending on how heavy people are.
By our mage, Ito, who this is one of his
better ideas.
Yeah.
Because we knew if we were going in the water, whatever was in the water was going to get us. Because you look at it, it's like, this is a very innocent setup. And that's when you look at the game master and you go, yeah, there's something in the water, there has to be. If it's not there, it's in the ceiling or one end or the other, or waiting on the far side. But
you got to challenge the party, man.
Well, that's the way it goes, I understand it. But we made it without incident.
A very good use of game mechanics, got them across safely, and then they move on.
Paranoia.
And so now Turin has to make another survival check to see if they get any further. Now, Ricky, who is a dear, dear friend of mine, he's very into this game, and he wants to do well. So when he rolls, and he rolls a 1, oh, he feels terrible.
He does. He actually literally will stand there, and you can see him beating himself up.
Yeah.
And you want to tell him, you just want to give the guy a cookie and pat him on the head. It's going to be okay. But he will sit there and just fume.
Yeah, because
and
he
that's
screwed
what
up.
Happened.
Yeah. Well, and so it was bad because as he's guiding him through, if they do well on the survival check, then they can approach a situation and plan ahead and figure out a way to either circumvent me or just engage combat on their terms. Well, rolling a 1 means a critical failure, means they don't see anything coming.
Are we there yet?
And so they wander into an ambush where they are surrounded by bacilli, which can turn you to stone. 4 bacilli, 1 on basically each point of the compass. And then 2 ropers. Ropers are big stalagmite/stalactite looking critters that, if they don't move, that's what you think they are. But when they do move, these big tentacles come out and they grab you and pull you in so they can bite your head off.
Yeah, if anything else, for lack of a better term, you could call it a rock squid. A thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, now this
but
is
wait,
where there's more, exactly. This is where, as I like to say, things go pear-shaped.
Well, it's already pear-shaped.
Well, it's already pear-shaped, but not like this. Oh, no.
But it gets worse.
No, it does get worse. Because here we are. We have a situation. This is bad. You have critters that can grab you, hold you in position, or drag you in and devour you. Then you also have other critters that are mobile, relatively quick, relatively heavily armored, and they can turn you to stone with a glance. This is an issue. Now, on top of that, someone makes an absolute statement.
And we know what absolute statements do with me. I say, okay, and I make it happen. Well, dear young Matt, he didn't say, wouldn't it be funny if, or I'm glad that this didn't happen. No, he says, and Tick-Tick's there! Now, if we recall, Tick-Tick is a recurring villain that I have. It's a kobold that was originally only 2 feet tall, but has been blessed, and now he is 6 foot plus with wings and is a sorcerer, so he can cast fireballs, etc., ad nauseum.
Master.
So, I say, okay, and I place a model for Tick-Tick on the board, at which point the entire group goes, no!
If ever, a look, like a combined look from a group of people could burn a person to ash, this would have been it. I mean, it would have been a pair of Crocs and a little pile of dust. That would have been it.
Because everybody swings to him at one time.
Really? Yeah, exactly. Now, here we have this situation. We are in a relatively square room, and we have these 4 monsters with the other 2 monsters. We're pretty well handled at this point. There are 2 entrances, other than the tunnel that we came through, that lead off across from us and off to one side. Now, Tick-Tick is way off to one side. Most of us have absolutely no line of sight to him, and this little bugger starts dropping fireballs on us. This is a problem. So, we begin to roll dice.
Yes, and the
Poorly.
the fight ensues. People are getting grappled, and one of the first things that happened, and this is why getting surprised by bacilli is a very bad thing. When a basilisk connects, gazes with you, they make you do a Constitution saving throw. If you fail, you get the beginnings of stone to form over you. You start getting turned to stone. Now, normally, if you are not surprised, you have a chance to look away. And this was what makes the fight hard, is you can't fight those things while looking at them, because if you look at them, they can do the stone gaze on you. Well, being surprised means you can't look away. You don't have that opportunity. You have to make that saving throw, and if you fail, you're in trouble. So if you fail the first one, the stone thing starts happening. If you fail the second one, you are turned to stone. Now,
That's a thing.
yes, that's a problem. So in the first round, Ailey, our druid healer, fails her Constitution saving throw and begins the process of turning to stone, as well as Oben, the druid that Matt plays. So you have 2 party members already getting turned to stone. The other 2 that had to do the Constitution saving throw, they passed their saves. Thankfully, yes, Fergus was one of them.
I got scared and the beard blew up over my eyes, protected me.
And just the melee commences. Tik is throwing fireballs, having a mage war with Ito, because Ito's casting counterspell to try and counter Tik's fireball, but then Tik casts counterspell to counterspell his counterspell. Just magic flying everywhere.
It was glorious.
And lots of damage is happening. People are hurting.
People are getting knocked down. Our remaining healer is doing sterling service, trying to keep us breathing.
She is throwing as many spells as she can to keep the party alive. And in the midst of all of this, Oben and Ailey both failed their second Constitution saving throw. Now, a lot of damage had been done to Oben and Ailey because of the fireballs and the bacilli and whatnot. But after Ailey got turned to stone, the bacilli kind of got disinterested and went to attack somebody else.
Yeah.
Well, Oben, on the other hand, he was very low on hit points, and he decided and previous to leaving Waterdeep, he bought what's called a periaptive wound closure because he has a propensity for nearly dying. And so what the periaptive wound closure does is, should you drop to 0 hit points, it automatically stabilizes you. Basically makes it so that as long as you don't get hit too much after you're already down, you'll be okay. Well, I believe I don't believe in mass punishment. Now, I did kind of punish the entire party with the Tik thing. But at the same time, it was one of those where it's like, okay, well, I kind of want to teach this kid a lesson because it's been months now and he knows how I feel about absolute statements, and yet he did it again. So after being turned to stone, the basilisk takes one more, stab at him, or bite. I think it was a bite, and does the last bit of hit points that his now stone form has, and he crumbles into little bitty pieces. And at this point, he was a tiger, I think, because he shapeshifted during his turn. And so he was a tiger, and then he's in tiger form when he turns to stone, and then he crumbles into itty bitty pieces, which precludes anybody rescuing him, because imagine trying to jigsaw this big stone tiger back together and then casting a stone to flesh spell, basically reverting him back to flesh. That would be very strange, because what happens if you put the stomach piece over where the lung piece should be?
There's all kind of pieces you could put in the wrong place.
Right, well, I was trying to keep it PG.
Well, I didn't say anything.
Okay.
It could have been...
And, anyway, so, our peanut gallery is losing it. The fight continues, and the party is able to finish off the ropers and the bacilli without too many more casualties. And now they have a situation. You've got the one druid that is a stone statue, and the other druid who is in itty bitty pieces. Well, thankfully at this point they have a bag of holding, so they put Ailey in the bag of holding because she doesn't need to breathe, so she can just be in the bag and just ride along without weighing too much until they can find somebody who can turn her back into flesh, like put her back to normal.
which beats the hell out of having to drag through the rest of the dungeon. Underdark, Lord knows what you're going to find next, lugging this poor person who's frozen solid. And we moved on.
Yeah.
Not too soon after that, they make a few turns, make another left, make another right, and open out into an enormous cavern. And lo and behold, a city within said cavern.
And they find Mordheim. Now, Mordheim is a decent-sized city for an underground, gathering of people. It's
underground torture chamber.
that too. It's got a nice-sized temple to the goddess that they worship, Goddess. Very important.
Keep track of that comment. There is a lot to be said for making sure that you know which sex your god or goddess is supposed to be.
So they have, and her name is Loviatar. She is the goddess of pain and death.
Hot chick, though.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Some very nice pictures in that temple. They have a tavern run, oddly enough, by a human named Joe.
Just Joe.
Just
nice
Joe.
Guy. How he got this kind of real estate, we haven't the foggiest idea. But he probably had the most well-defended bar you've ever seen.
Joe's, he's in the Underdark and he's a human. He has to protect himself. Joe has invested a lot in the Death's Head Inn. And it is very nice. It is very defensible. It also has a lot of luxuries, to include what amounts to a flat-screen TV. With a circuit, Joe's hired a mage to have a projection of what happens in the arena. Now, being that this city worships the goddess of pain and death, they have a gladiatorial arena where they have gladiator fights, and it's all about killing stuff and causing pain. And there's a whole festival where they worship her with gladiatorial fights, and there's betting and whatnot, and that's why Lithian's sisters and the high priest that is kind of in charge of them bring them to this city. It's kind of it's a relation thing. You want to have diplomatic relations with this city. You send some representatives to the city to participate in the gladiatorial events, which is what the sisters were for, because they are good fighters. The Drow High Priestess is going to enter them in the fights as entertainment and kind of a way to gain prestige in the Dwargar eyes, because these sisters they're not just any old Drow. They are special. They are, I'm just going to say badass. And so that's the thing. They have a big the big arena where the mage is broadcasting it directly into the tavern, so that it's almost like going to Buffalo Wild Wings or something like that, and you're paying, you go to see the fight.
Underdark Wild Wings?
Yeah. So that's one of the ways Joe makes money, is he broadcasts the fight and people go to his tavern and they drink lots of ale.
Perfect. It's perfection, all there is to it. Now, part of why the sisters were sent, they're not volunteers. No. One thing that Lithian didn't know, in the fullness of time, it's explained, but her sisters, when their house fell, her sisters were captured, and they became a bargaining chip, and the matron mother of the winning house was going to basically use them as leverage against their mother. And the long and the short of it is their mother wouldn't even tolerate that kind of negotiation. The only thing that she wanted, she just looked her dead in the eye and told her that she would go to the altar. Now, this is a sacrificial altar, willingly.
To Lolth, the Spider Queen.
She would go willingly as long as her daughters were left alive. And that's what happened. Now they are adopted into they're adopted into the conquering family, but they're the poor relations, and any rebellion was treated brutally. That's just the way it is. But the thing is the family didn't do any of the punishing. They forced them to punish each other. So over time, there seemed to be a break between the two sisters. Diana, the oldest, is much more of a chess player. Rhaena, the middle sister, tried to escape. Well, they caught her, and in order to punish her, they had Diana beat her with a whip. Now, in Drow society, for any fighter to have a scar, it's a blemish against their skill, their honor, and so on. They hate that. Well, this was outside of a fight, but still it was something that Rhaena seemed to never forgive her sister for. So Rhaena ends up spending more time with the house guards than with family, and Diana ends up cozying up very well to the new matron as her new adopted daughter. Now this went on for quite some time, until just before these current events, where it turns out that Diana has been playing the long game. It seems that the reason that their family of Doré have been so successful as nobles is they're traders. They're not big political movers and shakers. They're just very wise with their money. Well, this other house overran them to take that money and use it to their own ends. Well, the thing is the vaults to this home, built into this enormous stone block, the vaults are only able to be opened by one item, and it's disguised as a gemstone on a necklace that the matron mother wears. Well, the new matron mother has this, but after Diana kills her, after managing to get her alone at last and taking said gem, she gets her sister and they make a break for it. Now, they are eventually chased down and caught, and being sent here to fight in these blood pits is a punishment. If they live long enough, they may be brought back, if only to make them tell them where the gemstone is. Mm-hmm. Now, they do fight well, and they've been trained. I mean, these are trained Drow warriors. There's no two ways about it. The women are always nastier than the men are. It's just the way they're trained. And now, here we are. We've actually watched them fight. I forget what the hell they fought, but it was like two trolls, something along those lines. Two nasty creatures that they put down in quick order.
Yeah. And they see this at the Death's Head Inn, watching on Joe's big screen. Hence why I brought it up, is because that's where Lithian and the rest of the group gets the first chance to see the sisters, which is a big deal for Lithian, obviously, seeing her sisters for the first time, and now for the rest of the group, because their goal is to rescue these. Now, the next kind of segment is long. There's a lot of fighting, and we'll get into it. So we're going to end this episode right here. And as we like to say, but wait, there's more. So if you like the video, please hit like, share, subscribe to our channel. If you don't, please leave a comment. Let us know how we can improve. If you'd like to get more information on Silver Wolf Comics and Games, we've got a Facebook and a Twitter. Go ahead and click on the links below. I'll add those later somewhere. And yeah, y'all have a good night.
Peace.